I've got with me today Tom Parker Bowles, a renowned food writer and critic from the UK. Welcome to our little segment, Tom.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right. My first question is, what led you to a career as a food writer?
Oh gosh, I think I was useless at everything else. When I left university, I wasn't very good at holding on to a job. I don't think I'm made for the office, I'll be honest. And as you know, as a journalist, if you can string a sentence together and get your copy in on time and make it interesting. So anyway, I started at Condé Nast at Tatler because I love food and I could write, and that was it. Sort of, and suddenly, by pure joy, I ended up with a career in writing about restaurants with food and being able to travel to wonderful countries like Sri Lanka and eat.
As a young person or as a child, did you have much, were you exposed to
Well,
cooking?
I grew up in a very traditional British English household. My mother was a good cook. We ate well. My father shot and gardened. So we ate local and seasonal and organic food before they became buzzwords for marketing people to make lots of money out of. And yes, it was all a very idyllic childhood until, like most English boys of my sort of generation, we were sent off to boarding school in Oxford. It was fine, nothing too bad, but the food was appalling, absolutely appalling. So it turned what was a healthy appetite into greed and obsession. And I suppose, so if I could thank anything of my prep school in Oxford, I can thank it for giving me giving me such a bad experience with food that it turned into an obsession. But no, I just sort of fell into it, and 25 years later, I'm still here, touch wood.
Right. And would you say you are a better cook than a food writer, or vice versa?
Oh gosh, that's a serious question. I sound very arrogant to say either. I think I'm a decent. I feel more comfortable saying I'm a decent cook. You know, people, my family and friends would tell me if they didn't like it. And you know, as a writer, you know when you've done a good piece, you know it's a good piece, and when you've done a less than good piece, you work on it to make it a good piece. And we've all written pieces that aren't perhaps up to the standards that you would hope, but that's, you know, my job as a journalist is to make sure I file copy and it's oven ready, and my editor and my sub-editors will be okay with it. So you don't want to be mediocre, you want to be good. So I aim to be good.
Right. And in your opinion, what are the essential attributes needed to be a good food critic?
Well, of course, there was, I mean, first of all, there's a great American food writer called A.J. Liebling. He was a sports writer as well, worked for New York, and he said, the primary thing you have to do, you know, to be a food writer is to have a good appetite. You only get 3 or 4 opportunities a day to practice your craft, your art. So you have to have an appetite. I think you have to love food, and you have to be interested. And I've never stopped being interested. This is my first time in Sri Lanka. I've eaten Sri Lankan food a lot, but never in Sri Lanka. So I'm always learning. The older I get, the less I know. So it's...
Yeah. Do you, just getting back to your previous answer, do you find a difference in the Sri Lankan cuisine you have in London and here?
Of course, because everything's going to taste different. You know, the cinnamon will taste more fragrant, the chilies will taste more hot, but there are pockets of Sri Lankan communities in London, in the northwest and south. So that's where I first tried it. And then of course now Sri Lanka's become very, I hate the word trendy, because trendy means it will disappear.
Yes.
I don't want Sri Lankan food to go anywhere, nor does anyone, but you've got Cynthia doing rambutan, you've got Karen doing hoppers, which really started the sort of taking it out of the suburbs and into the more, I suppose, expensive parts of town. So now, because of hoppers, because of rambutan, because of paradise, it's become people beginning to know more and more about Sri Lankan food, and that completely did it.
I remember watching you on MasterChef when Charit, the chef, he kept bringing dish after dish, and your eyes kept lighting up. For our viewers who didn't see that, can you explain why you were so thrilled to be tasting Sri Lankan cuisine that day?
Well, because MasterChef, I'm a chef, I'm a critic on MasterChef, and you get very good cooks, very good chefs cooking, but the same sort of French classical food, you know, with a piece of protein, whether it's turbot or pigeon or whatever, with the sauce, and you know, you think, okay, great. Then in comes someone of Sri Lankan heritage, and you start getting the spice. I think you did a crab dish that was just out of this world, and I remember very little of the dishes I ate, but that sticks with me, and we all just look at each other. We don't have to speak. It sung, it was vibrantly spiced, it was beautifully put together, it was original. It didn't just show him as a chef of great talent, but it reflected his Sri Lankan heritage, and that's what I want to see in food. You know, I want to see background, I want to see memory, I want to see love, I want to see excitement. You know, that's what food's about. And I can still remember it now, and it was 4 or 5 years ago, I think, or maybe 3 or 4, but I never remember anything, but that one stuck.
Yeah, and when you're traveling, are there any sorts of food you tend to avoid?
Yes, Western food if I'm in anywhere. I tend to, if I'm in India or Mexico or Thailand or Sri Lanka, you know, I get Western food when I'm in the West. I don't want to eat that. So for me, the idea of having beautiful hoppers for breakfast and a fish curry and a sambar is my idea of heaven, which I've had this morning, so hence being in such a good mood.
And what tips can you share with aspiring food writers?
Gosh, back to that thing, to be an aspiring food writer, I think perseverance and passion. You know, you have to love what you do. You can't just think, oh, you know, this might, don't look at it cynically. You have to love food and be obsessed with it. And also, you know, in terms of writing, I think that you need a voice. You need to be, you know, you can't just sit in the middle. Have an opinion, care about what you do, and look always, it's not just, you know, food, as I always say, is not just a hobby. It's a prism through which we see history, economics, it's health, it's wealth, it's happiness, it's everything. It's a one universal experience we all have.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but do you think it's important for food writers to have an educated palate?
Well, I think everybody, you know, the thing people say, why are you a food critic? And I think, well, I would never dream of saying that my palate's any different from anyone else's. What might be the difference is after 25 years of, let's say, eating regularly in restaurants and traveling around, I might be able to tell you the difference between a dish done well and a dish done badly. So it's experience that helps. But you know, my children are 16 and 13. They can tell me if it's a good, I don't know, al pastor taco or a good Szechuan hot pot or roast beef, whatever. So everyone, we all have, unless you're very unlucky, we all have taste buds and we can all use them. But I think what perhaps helps us as food critics and as food writers is we have the library of experience to come back and go, well, it should taste like this, and then also to be able to talk to chefs. Yeah. And you know, they teach us as well.
When you're writing a review, do you ever hold back or censor yourself when you have to review a particularly bad offering?
Well, I mean, you have a good point there, because I see myself, you know, the language of hate and disgust is far richer than the language of like and love. And it's much more fun occasionally writing a really, really nasty review. But restaurants are hard work. We're going in the UK, you know, it's hard times at the moment, and people put their whole life into a restaurant. And if I come swanning in, you know, not thinking about it on one night that it's a bad night, it's a small family-owned restaurant, and I give a bad review, listen, it's not going to close it down anymore, but it seems a bit unfair. So it's different if it's a big chain. I'm not so bothered about that if it's bad, but I tend to go and look for the good. I want my readers to follow me and be there with me and find the good places. So that's my job.
And how do you select restaurants to be reviewed? Do you go anonymously, or are you invited? Or
well, no. We have to. The key is, and it's very nicely that the men on Sunday pay my expenses. So always pay. I'd never write a word if I wasn't. If they paid for me. That's very important, and you try and go anonymously, but England's quite a small country, and basically there's a great picture of me on my column, and so, you know, I think more if you go to proper Chinese or Indian or Mexican, more sort of, you know, that then they don't care, because you know, we just all look the same. But I think in the, you know, you try and do some new restaurants, you try and go around the country, you know, it's fun choosing restaurants.
And if you weren't a food critic, what do you think you would have done? Alternative career?
I don't know. I mean, perhaps something to do with writing. As I said, I'm useless in an office. I'm not very good at, you know, I haven't worked in an office for many, many years, and I wouldn't be not very good at, you know, sort of
9 to 5.
9 to 5 in the corporate life. But you know, I'm self-employed. So, what would I have done? Oh, God only knows, to be honest. I'd like to say something like a lawyer or a doctor, but I don't have the brains or the commitment to do that. So I'm very lucky in doing what I do, and I can't think of anything else I'd love to do. It's travel, food.
A final question: what is one Sri Lankan dish that you're looking forward to eating that you haven't tasted before?
Wow, well, there's so many, and listening to Cynthia and you know, all the chefs. I mean, black pork curry, I've had a version of it, of course, in the UK, but I want to have it here properly. Again, I was talking about it yesterday. I love the sambals. I love the fact that not only every state, every city has its own version, but every household and every mother and every auntie, whoever it is, has their version. And I think sambals get me very excited because you know they can be mild, they can be furiously hot, but they're all different. They all have such a sense of identity, and they remind me very much of salsas in Mexico. You know, you can have 4 or 5 different kinds, and that is as important as the main dish. Also, I love, egg hoppers, string hoppers, and, you know, there's very, very little I won't eat.
Have you ever tried lamprey?
No.
Okay, you must try that.
And what's that? Just
it's like a mixed meat curry with fricadelles and onion relish, wrapped and steamed in a banana leaf. It's something that we inherited from the Dutch with a little bit of Indonesian influence.
How is that all the bits insides of the lamb or just?
No, it's a mixed meat curry, it's like chicken, pork, or mutton cooked together.
Oh.
Yeah,
thank
you must try that.
I will do. I mean, every moment I'm not eating here is a wasted moment. So, yes, well, thank you for that.
Right,
so,
thank you very much
thank
for
you
your
so
time.
much for your time.
And I hope you have a very successful festival here in Sri
Well,
Lanka.
I'm having a lovely time so far, so thank you very much.